Welcome to the Minifigures of, the show in which we go over the action figure histories of various Transformers characters. And this time around, I think it's time we finally talk about the Chosen One. Hot Rod, Rodimus, regardless of what you want to call him, we're talking about this guy. Before we get started, I want to give a big thanks to the Vinyl Cowberry, Jinx 3D 360, and especially Bethany Brown 3686. Bethany especially has been waiting a long while for me to come back and touch on Rodimus, and I'm going to let you all know right now, this is going to be a bit of a long one, so you might want to strap in. For anyone who doesn't know Hot Rod, he was introduced all the way back in the 1986 G1 movie. He went from being just a turbo-revving young punk into the next proper leader of the Autobots, succeeding Optimus Prime and destroying Unicron. Season 3 actually has a bit of a story arc for Rodimus, following him as he goes through the trials and tribulations of being the next leader of the Autobots, especially with the guilt he still carries for the role he played in Optimus Prime's death. At multiple points in Season 3, Hot Rod tries to pawn off the Matrix. When it gets stolen from him, he's genuinely happy, but he has to reclaim it. When Optimus seems to come back briefly, Hot Rod's happy to be Hot Rod once again, but realizes that he needs to continue leading the Autobots. Come Season 3's finale though, Optimus was just back for good. They don't make a point of Rodimus relinquishing the Matrix, Optimus just has it again. He's the leader again. Rodimus is just another rank-and-file soldier. There was a lot of controversy around the death of Optimus Prime in Generation 1. It seems as though a lot of that anger, for fans at least, just went to the character of Hot Rod, leading to a number of years where there was a weird resentment around his character.
Why do I keep seeing you in my dreams, Optimus? Are you telling me I'm not the leader you were?
But that doesn't change the fact that he's still beloved, and he has still had an insane amount of toys. Going to the year 1986, you could have picked up Hot Rod. He was officially listed as an Autobot Lancer, and I will say, I think he's one of the best G1 figures, and easily one of the best 1986 figures. These guys were all designed first for the cartoon, and then they attempted to make the action figures, a complete reversal of every Transformer to come before, and honestly, after them. This figure has such wonderful proportions. Great arms, legs, torso, a very characterful head, a great color scheme. His vehicle mode is iconic, eye-catching, it's beautiful, and so idealistically 80s and what a future car might look like. I love the fact that he has two different guns, he has his arm cannons, and the best part about him is his transformation. He has tricks that we wouldn't see again until the Unicron trilogy. He was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. It's interesting to me that they really did get all the way behind this Hot Rod character. But I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a interesting tidbit. Takara didn't know Hot Rod and Rodimus were supposed to be different characters. Don't get me wrong, in 1986 there was a Rodimus Prime figure. He's honestly a little bit more rough, his proportions are very lanky, just look at how massive his legs are, I don't like the back fin, and they really could have integrated the trailer in a more interesting way than just the big turret. But the reason why he looks this way is because Takara didn't know that Hot Rod and Rodimus Prime were supposed to be the same character. They treated them like they were supposed to just be part of the same unit. And that's because Hasbro was so hush-hush about the idea, even internally. It was a very weird couple of months where not just between Hasbro and Takara, but even within Hasbro's own markets, within the Marvel Comics and the toy lines, they actually weren't all that clear as to what the relationship between Hot Rod and Rodimus were supposed to be. Of course, confusion like that doesn't mean we didn't try to merchandise the hell out of Rodimus. Within 1986, there was the Decipher the Decepticon Sweepstakes prize. They would have offered up one of 5 motorized Hot Rod go-karts. Unfortunately, there are no photos of these. Alongside that, in Kabaya's Transformers Coco candy lines, you could have gone a small version of both Hot Rod and Rodimus, as well as both their vehicle modes, alongside a piece of caramel candy. Sticking with Kabaya, they also made a release of a model kit Rodimus. This figure would have actually been a pretty good approximation of his G1 figure, much smaller, and you would have to take him apart as opposed to properly transforming him, but he came free with gum for crying out loud. There was the Transformers Milk Caramel Rodimus that would have even been glown in the dark, Kabaya would have done even more versions of Hot Rod and Rodimus inside their Transformers Renume line. Takara would have made a small vinyl figure of Rodimus to be sold in a 2-pack with Galvatron. For God's sakes, there would have even been a talking Rodimus figure in the Talkformers line. Things did slow down a lot in 1987 though. There would have been a re-release of the original Hot Rod toy, this time with Firebolt, his Target Master. This would have been how Hot Rod appeared within Season 4 of the G1 cartoon. That vinyl figure that had been 2-packed with Galvatron was now re-released, but this time he was 2-packed with Chrome Dome. Released only in Japan, there would have been the Transformers Jr. Rodimus Prime, a much smaller version of the Rodimus Prime figure that was made to be a cheaper alternative for children. 1987 also saw the release of the Forms Robo Rodimus. It would have basically been the decoy figure, but about twice the size. This is kind of wild. In 1990, there would have been something called the Parody Deformed Rodimus. This was just Takara kind of having a go at themselves. He was a cute little Rodimus, though, you gotta give him credit. In 1991, there would have been a Micromaster Hot Rod to go alongside Star Convoy. In 1996, you would have had the MC Axis Hot Rod. If you painted the small kit, it would have been a pretty nice looking Hot Rod. I think it's worth mentioning that Hot Rod did not make any type of appearance within the Beast era of the franchise. Even though there were still some novelty figures throughout the 90s, he really didn't have a proper new figure until the year 2000, in which the original Hot Rod would be re-released in Takara in December of that year. In 2001, if you'd gone to the Tokyo Toy Festival, you could have gotten the G1 Hot Rod done entirely in translucent plastic. This year would also see the release of the first proper reissue of Rodimus Prime in a very nice box. 2001 would have also seen the release of Black Rodimus. This was supposed to be a manifestation of all the negative parts of Rodimus Prime's psyche, put out by eHobby. I don't really dig it. I think the stickers actually make the figure look a little bit bootleg. Maybe if they had turned it monochrome too, but yeah, just having random red and yellow stickers on a black figure, not the most appealing thing in the world. Truth be told though, my favorite thing to come out of 2001 when it came to Rodimus was his Koro Q versions. This is the spiritual father of the Q Transformers. Simple, cube-like figures that would have each had very stylized proportions and overall designs. I quite like Rodimus Prime, even though he didn't actually have that type of chest. Doesn't really matter though, look at how good they got the trailer. They would have done this version again within the same year, this time in metallic paint. In 2002, it was time for Rodimus to come back to the United States. We had Rodimus Major, a reissue of the Hot Rod toy that Takara put out the year before. The reason he was called Rodimus Major seemingly was just because they couldn't trademark Hot Rod, and they didn't want to call him Prime because I guess it could have been confusing. Hasbro's done this a few times in which we've tried to give a new suffix to Rodimus, and it never really works. But hey, you could have also gone the Super Collection figure Rodimus, both in his cartoon colors and a clear version, or you could have found the rare secret figure where he would have been entirely translucent plastic and was holding the Matrix of Leadership aloft. If you would have wanted a more articulated version of a non-transforming Hot Rod, you could have gone the Mega Super Collection figure Hot Rodimus, or Rodimus Convoy. They are the same figure, but Rodimus does stand a little bit taller. There would have been even more Super Collection figures for Rodimus in 2003, as you not only could get the now opaque colored version of that Matrix Hot Rod alongside a pewter version, or you could have gone a completely new mold of Rodimus with a new paint scheme and also a pewter version. This version of Hot Rod would have then be released in the United States in 2003 under the Heroes of Cybertron line. There was the My Clone Rodimus Convoy, and I'm gonna say it, this is the best My Clone I've seen so far. He looks better than Thundercracker, looks better than Jazz, definitely looks better than Sideswipe. There was also the Hard Hero Bust, pretty nice looking version of Hot Rod, or if you wanted to, you could get a bottle cap version of Rodimus Convoy. This guy would have been black and white. You could pop that on a soda bottle, probably, maybe, I don't really know. 2004 would prove to be a very interesting year for Hot Rod, but we'll go over some G1 stuff first. For one, there would have been yet another reissue of him in Takara Markets. This time he included his Target Master and was in one of those beautiful book reissue boxes. There was also the smallest transforming Transformer Hot Rod, a beautiful little 1-inch version of the original figure. I adore this, absolutely adore it. However, 2004 was also a big deal because it was the first time a new version of Rodimus would have been introduced into the Transformers canon, that being Rodimus from Energon, a leader of the Omnicrons and one of the most interesting designs to ever come out of that series. The Combat Class Rodimus is still one of my favorites. The articulation's a bit wonky, and the truck mode, I could take it or leave it. But that robot mode, I love his massive shoulder pads, I like his proportions, I love the head. It's such a cool looking new version of Rodimus. And I think it's cool that when they decided to bring this character back, they did lean into the idea that this was Rodimus Prime and not just Hot Rod. Energon already had Hotshot. Hotshot took over a lot of the spotlight Hot Rod could have had. But having Rodimus, another leader of a different group of Cybertronians, who was more jagged around the edges and a bit more ornery than Optimus, it works. It's something that I would love to see be visited again. Have Rodimus as a perhaps more cynical but also more relatable leader compared to Optimus Prime and his Autobots. By the way, they did like 12 different versions of this toy. There was Black Rodimus Convoy. Looks really nice, actually. I love how the black and red interact. There was Rodimus Convoy Gold version. This is just insane and was offered only in a TV magazine raffle. Only 10 of these things exist. And there was also the Rodimus Convoy Mechie version, which was another metallic version of Rodimus. It is the year 2005. And you'd expect there would be something for Hot Rod to kind of commemorate the fact that 2005 was supposed to be the year that the movie took place. But no, there was just the reissue of Star Convoy in which he was once again a very cool-looking Micromaster. And going into 2006, there would have been the reissue of the smallest transforming Transformers Rodimus put into Toys R Us. There was a 3-inch Robot Master of Rodimus released by Titanium. Alternator's Mirage would have been remolded into Kiss Players Rodimus, and that is all I care to say about Kiss Players. But the biggest figure Rodimus received in 2006 had to be Classics Rodimus. Now, this is very clearly Hot Rod, do not get me wrong, but it was called Rodimus on the box because, again, Hasbro couldn't get the copyright for Hot Rod. This figure hasn't aged the best, it's been outdone quite a few times now, but look at that car mode. That's still one of the best car modes Hot Rod's ever received at the mainline retail level. And the robot mode isn't shabby. The proportions are a bit weird, especially in the lower arms, but overall, it's still a good-looking Hot Rod. A standout from the Classics line, which was really nothing but bangers for the entire 3 waves it had. I love this little guy. I would love to add him to my collection eventually. Finally, in 2006, Energon Rodimus was shown up one last time in the Tactics toy line. 2007 was going to be a little bit weird, so there was the Metalverse Collection Hot Rodimus. This was a PVC statue, but then check out this thing! Art Asylum did a statue of Hot Rod holding the Matrix up with Unicron just glowering above him. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you had this cute little guy, Robot Heroes Hot Rod packed alongside Insecticon, that is Shrapnel. I don't know why we didn't just call him Shrapnel. Besides the point though, Hot Rod's adorable. So you would have had the Titanium series Rodimus Prime. This was actually designed by one of my favorite Transformers artists of all time, Don Figueroa. And this figure, it's good. I mean, I like the proportions. The transformation's a bit iffy in all honesty. But I think this is a really nice all-in-one Rodimus. Most of the time, they don't have him transform with the trailer. The trailer's its own thing, so I enjoy the fact that they actually went for it this time and tried to incorporate the trailer more. There was also the Alternator's Rodimus that just would have had a little bit less paint than Kiss Players, but because it's not Kiss Players, I'll talk about it now. I love Alternator's Rodimus. I think that his proportions are a bit strange, his arms especially are weedy, but look at that beautiful car mode of his. I even think that they integrated the flames decently well. Those could have been tacky. Overall, alternators are always going to have a bit strange oddities when it comes to their robot modes, but that was just part of the toy line, man. They were prioritizing the vehicle mode more so than ever before, and it made some pretty interesting toys at the end of the day. 2008 was kind of weird, honestly. There was the Diamond Select Rodimus Prime head bust. On the other hand, you would have had Revoltech Hot Rodimus. This is a great non-transforming figure. Ultra well articulated, multiple accessories, a great paint job. I love the Revoltech Transformers. They're some of my favorite little dudes ever put out by Revoltech, and I think Rodimus is one of the better ones. Not quite on Starscream or Megatron's level, but he's a whole heck of a lot better than Optimus. Popping over to Japan, Classics Rodimus would have been released in the Henkei line, given a much more cartoon-accurate paint scheme. Our little guy will also pop up in Universe 2008 as a Legends class figure, and I'll say it, this is a good attempt at doing a Legends Rodimus. Let's wrap up 2008 by popping over to BotCon and seeing Shattered Glass Hot Rod, a purple and black version of the Classics mold. That looks pretty solid, all things considered. I like that original Shattered Glass run of figures. In 2010, Classics Rodimus would have been released in the Challenge at Cybertron multipack alongside Cyclonus and Galvatron. You could have picked up an entirely different Classics Hot Rod inside the Battle in Space 2-pack alongside yet another Cyclonus. Or you could have picked up a translucent version of the mold alongside a Classics Deluxe Optimus in the Sons of Cybertron 2-pack. However, 2010 was also going to signify yet another new version of Rodimus hitting television screens, that being animated Rodimus. Even though he only would have shown up in 2 scenes in the entire cartoon, he made quite the impression on fans, especially with the fact that he was basically presented as being the best soldier in the Autobot army, one that was able to take on Team Char and almost come up on top. In 2010, you could have gotten the Sons of Cybertron, Optimus Prime, and Rodimus 2-pack, but the figures would have been translucent plastic. Or you could have just popped into Toys R Us and gotten the actual Rodimus Minor. Again, we were giving him a new suffix to try to make it seem like he wasn't a Prime. But look at this figure. One of the best animated figures ever. An amazing transformation, beautiful proportions, a great weapon, a characterful head sculpt, a great paint job. I love this figure. The only thing that could have made it better was if you got the Japanese release, in which they gave him just the best metallic maroon red paint job. Look at this. This is the single Rodimus I need most in my life right now. I'm gonna level with you guys. We still have a lot of figures to go over, but if I see Classics Hot Rod again in the next few minutes, I'm going to scream. So why don't we pop over to Third Party and see what they've gone up to. The first third-party Rodimus that I can really remember would have been... Oh, son of a... Yeah, the first third-party Hot Rod I remember would have actually been Fans Project giving him the Rodimus armor. This was basically you took your deluxe Hot Rod, and this trailer would have given you the ability to make him look more like Rodimus Prime. This armor, alongside the G3 trailer and the City Commander armor, were really kind of what birthed Third Party in a weird way. So, hey, good on you, Hot Rod, even if you did get this mold re-released like 50 times. I'll be honest with you guys, there's actually not all that many third-party Hot Rods to talk about. Going over some Legends options, there was the Mech Fan Toys Flamewalker, a good-looking Legends Rodimus to be sure. He has a good robot mode, decent car mode, good enough transformation, but it's kind of weird that New Age and Iron Factory haven't touched him. For God's sake, Iron Factory! All the IDW characters they've done, and they've not done a Rodimus yet. That's weird, right? Well, let's pop over to Masterpiece Alikes. Maybe there's more Rodimuses there. There is the DX9 Carry. I think the figure looks fine. The transformation's a bit of a nightmare. The truck mode's beautiful. But that robot mode, there's something about the shoulders that really bother me. Rodimus looks a bit too thin here to my eye. DX9 would also do this mold as Shattered Glass Rodimus, naming him Terror. This one I like a whole lot more. As it turns out, black, silver, purple, that color scheme can really help a figure out if they have somewhat wonky proportions. Yeah, there's only one other third-party Masterpiece Rodimus, that being the Fans Toys Hoodlum. This is Fans Toys' take on Hot Rod, and it's a good-looking figure. Well-proportioned, good articulation, beautiful paint. I love how the shoulders look, love the car mode, love the chrome on the arms. A great figure from every angle. It's just weird that this is the only other one. Like, Not even a pop-in from maybe Ocular Max or Make Toys? Well, maybe not Ocular Max, but Mastermind Creations have done a Rodimus. They did Calidus. This is the IDW Rodimus, and the figure's gorgeous. Absolutely love him, love his proportions. I love the alternate face to give him a smirk. Great colors, great paint. Good figure all the way around. And in all honesty, my favorite version of the mold is their asterisk mode that gives him the paint colors that he would have had during the Lost Light era of the comic. This is him in his revenge colors when he is on his quest to kill Getaway, and I really want this figure. Just look at that car mode. That said, I'll be honest with you guys, I think the best third-party IDW Rodimus is the SXS Hot Flame. This is just a well-proportioned figure, beautiful, better head sculpt than even the Mastermind Creations version. The transformation's a bit finicky, but car mode's great too. Overall, it's just thinned out the figure a lot more, helped really capture the proper design that we saw on panel. It's probably the best figure we'll ever get for an IDW Rodimus. When it comes to third-party attempts at the Bayverse, there was the TF Evo Hot Rod. This figure looks fine. I mean, I like it, don't get me wrong. I think the issue is that even though this figure was on the market first, the figure that I more think of when I consider third-party movie Rodimus is DX9 LaHire. This is perfect. DX9, I don't know what it is, but them and Unique Toys, they cracked the code. They understand how to do masterpiece movie better than even Hasbro and Takara does, and LaHire is an absolutely gorgeous figure. Love this one. And that wraps up third party on Hot Rod and Rodimus. It's really weird that they don't have more, right? I mean, Ultra Magnus, RC, Springer, even Cup. They all have way more love in third party, it feels like. But the main character of the movie all these characters came from, he's the one that struggles to get any toys out. But hey, 2011, let's check back in and see what Hasbro and Takara were getting up to with Masterpiece Rodimus Convoy. Now this figure was interesting. It was supposed to be a 4-in-1. Hot Rod's robot mode and car mode alongside Rodimus's robot mode and car mode. Even though you might not notice it at first, Rodimus and Hot Rod have really different designs. Their proportions are entirely separate. Hot Rod's a lot more stocky, whereas Rodimus is far taller and leaner. Even the fin on the back has a different look. And that's without getting to the fact that, at the end of the day, the hoods are different for the car and truck mode. This figure actually manages to hit every single one of those bases incredibly well. It would have been a marvel of Takara engineering if it worked. Unfortunately, this Hot Rod was plagued with some of the worst quality control issues of any masterpiece ever. In Hasbro markets, they would have released Masterpiece Rodimus Prime with a Target Master, but no trailer. Which means, sure, you get the car mode for Hot Rod, and you still get the robot modes for Hot Rod and Rodimus, but no trailer makes it feel a little bit strange. And also, Hasbro's Rodimus has its own series of quality control issues in which the knees will just start tearing themselves apart eventually due to the springs inside. They somehow managed to fix some of the issues with the Takara engineering and make entirely new ones. This mold is cursed. At the very least, there was the Chronicle Hot Rodimus. Yeah, that Universe Legends guy finally made it over to Japan. There was the United Autobot set that gave us this really cool looking like aqua green translucent Rodimus. Love this look, really. In 2011, our old friend Kabaya came back to give us yet another Hot Rod model kit. But look at this one! Still snapped together, but it can kind of transform, and it just looks like a good Hot Rod. Love this one. The Universe mold would have also been released in Dark the Mood alongside a Legends Bumblebee and Soundwave, meaning that technically this was the first figure of movie Hot Rod, but let's be fair, he was really there just to fill out a 3-pack. Oh, for crying out loud. In 2012, Classics Hot Rod was released once again in the Takara Tomy United toy line. Jesus Christ, does this mold ever take a break? Universe Legends Hot Rod was back too. This time he was in the Easy collection, being released with a piece of candy. I do like the colors here though, a little bit darker than usual. We'll skip past 2013 and go straight into 2014, in which we would have had a lot of weird ups and downs for Rodimus. For one, you would have had the Creon Microchanger Rodimus, just a good little Lego alike that could actually kinda transform. Pretty interesting. There was the Hero Masher Rodimus. The whole gimmick here was if you collected a bunch of these guys, you could tear them apart and build up your own robot modes. Rodimus has his good silhouette still, so one of the more interesting designs from the wave. Goldie Marketing would have made a tiny version of Rodimus inside their Thrilling 30 collectible figurines blind packages. Decent little Rodimus. Same little guy would have been released again a few months later in a 5-pack with Bumblebee, Shockwave, Ultra Magnus, and Grimlock. But to me, the best figure of Hot Rod in 2014 is the Q Transformers Hot Rod. Look at him! Why are they all so good? This is actually ridiculous. That doesn't even really look like Hot Rod, and yet I still love him. Oh yeah, there was also a Shattered Glass Creon that was released in BotCon, but that doesn't matter. Look at Q Transformers Rodimus. A close second for the year, though, had to be Cloud Hot Rodimus. They took Thrilling 30 Springer and remolded him into IDW Rodimus, released only in Japan in incredibly low quantities. But this figure is beautiful. I love it. I wish it saw a wider release because it works so well as an IDW Rodimus, and if you don't like IDW, it's cool to think of Hot Rod as a triple changer. In 2015, Rodimus would have made it into Combiner Wars. This time, he was kind of homaging the Micromaster version of him as being just a tiny partner for the Battle Core Optimus Prime. He would have formed the chest of Optimus Maximus. Art Storm would also do a super deformed version of Rodimus in their ES Gokin line. Going into 2016, it's him again! How is it him again? There's a Platinum Edition version of Classics Hot Rod. This time he's with a couple of Junkions for the Planet of Junk Clash. Wow, it's not that good a figure, guys. I'm sorry, it's not. At the very least, there would have been Hot Rod in Titan's Return, and I love this figure. The proportions are great, the transformation good and simple. I love all the different ways the Titan Master can interact with Hot Rod. I know people who were pretty down on this figure, and yeah, I do hate that you can't really see his fin past his shoulders, but it's a good toy all around. I really like this one. To wrap up 2016, there was Masterpiece Hot Rodimus. This figure was just trying to be Hot Rod, and I'll say it, his proportions are very weird. I don't like his torso at all. But look at the accessory he comes with, the buzzsaw, the guns, but most importantly, the fishing rod. The fishing rod is the best accessory any Transformer has ever come with. Yes, I am saying I would buy this figure just for the fishing rod. Some big things happened for Hot Rod in 2017, but we'll stick with G1 for real quick. You have the Rise of Rodimus Prime 2-pack. This would have been a re-release of the Titanium Rodimus, and all I can say is thank God it's not Classics Hot Rod again. If you got the Chaos on Velocitron multi-pack from Titan's Return, you would have had a Titan Master that was actually supposed to be Rodimus Prime. Titan's Return Hot Rod was released in the Legends line in Japan as Hot Rodimus. They actually changed the mold so that you could hide away the engine block in his chest. Beautiful paint job on the figure as well, quite like him. In all honesty though, the most interesting version of Hot Rod of this year, for me at least, was from G.I. Joe. The Transformers Collectors Club did a version of Human Rodimus from a G1 episode where him, Springer, RC, and Ultra Magnus were all turned into humans by Old Snake, Cobra Commander. It's actually a really cool idea. I kind of hope that maybe in G.I. Joe Classified, we'll see these designs again, because, hey, human Transformers is kind of a funny idea. Of course, 2017 also marked the release of The Last Knight, the first movie since the original 1986 one to feature Hot Rod, even though here, he was less leader-to-be and more French stereotype. Looking at some of his toys, he would have had a tiny turbochanger, looks pretty solid. There would have been a remold of the one-step changer Lockdown from Age of Extinction that would have turned into Hot Rod, again, looks pretty solid. It also started a trend where basically all of Lockdown's toys got remolded into Hot Rod. Don't ask me why. Case in point, Flip and Change Lockdown turned into Flip and Change Hot Rod. There would have been a Legion class Hot Rod released only at Walmart, and in all honesty, this is one of the better looking figures this character ever received. That Legends Hot Rod would be released again within the same year in a 2-pack alongside Bumblebee. This time he had a little bit of a flame deco. And then the big figure for Last Night Hot Rod had to be the proper Deluxe Hot Rod. This is Deluxe Lockdown with a new head, but hey, he wears the mold well. Whereas Lockdown looked a bit too squat, this actually kind of works for Hot Rod. He's supposed to be a bit stockier. There would have been a little version of both Robot Mode and Vehicle Mode Hot Rod in the My Busy book. This would have given you 12 figurines, and Hot Rod is actually probably the strongest one out of all of them. That said, look at this thing. Soldier Story Unicron, and one of his accessories was a small Rodimus that would have stood in front of him. The Hot Rod is 6 inches tall, Unicron 26 inches tall. This thing is insane. You know what? I'll say it. In 2017, there were too many car versions of Hot Rod for the movie. There was the Simba Smallby version. There was the Jada Toys version. There was the bigger Jada Toys version. There was also the 1/64th scale Jada Toys version. There's too many versions of just car Hot Rod. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it right now. 2018 had some really good Rodimus Primes. For one, you had Evolution Rodimus Prime from Power of the Primes. The leader class price point of this toy line had a grow-up gimmick, in which it was supposed to be a figure before the Matrix. You get the Matrix, you get to use the big trailer the toy came with to give them their proper robot mode. They did an Optimus, they did an Optimus Primal, but honestly, I think Hot Rod did it the best. Yes, his shoulders are a bit wonky, but that doesn't change the fact that they did it. They gave us a proper Hot Rod and a proper Rodimus in a 2-for-1 figure. The same mold would be used for Evolution Rodimus Unicronus, basically their take on a shattered glass Rodimus at the leader price point. Looks pretty solid. This is a crossover I actually really liked. They did Street Fighter Cross Transformers with Hot Rod turning into their version of Ken. All I can say is that is perfect casting. There was also the great Walmart reissue of G1 Rodimus. Imaginarium Art would have done a Rodimus Prime. Overall, good-looking statue. It actually was unfortunately based off the DX9 Carry, which I'm sure led to some pretty interesting conversations. Finally, in the Masterpiece line, there would have been Target Master Hot Rodimus. This would have been that second version of Masterpiece Hot Rod, this time given his Target Master and much more muted colors. Pretty good figure all around. Popping over to the movies, there would have been the Bumblebee movie Autobot Hot Rod, one of the Energon Igniters. Overall, decent looking Hot Rod, like the muscle car mode. There would have been a second Energon Igniter Hot Rod. This time he would have had a double barrel cannon that could pop out from underneath his hood. In 2019, there was yet another new version of Hot Rod out there, this time the Cyberverse Hot Rod. And I'll say it, his character was a highlight of Season 3. One of my favorite versions of the character to date, and thankfully, he had quite a few figures. There was the One Step Changer Hot Rod. It probably could have used a little bit more paint, but overall, good figure. Warrior Class Hot Rod. It probably could have used a little bit more paint, but overall, good figure. And the Tiny Turbo Changer Hot Rod. It probably could have used... Oh, wait a minute, I think I fell into a trend. To bring 2019 to a close, there would have been the Studio Series World War II Autobot Hot Rod. This was just a retool of the World War II Bumblebee, and even though I think it wore the mold better, it's still not the best. In the year 2020, we'll pop back over to Cyberverse, in which we would have had the Sharkticons Attack set. There would have been a black repaint of the One Step Changer Hot Rod. Looks great. There also would have been a black repaint of the Warrior Class Hot Rod. Again, the mold does look better in black. The Tiny Turbo Changer also had a black redeco. Am I falling into a bit again? No, it's good. We have the Ultra Class Hot Rod. This would have been a very simple but very large Voyager-sized Hot Rod. Overall, he looks decent. But in all honesty, the best figure that Cyberverse Hot Rod ever received is probably his Deluxe Class figure still. Again, it could have used more paint, but the transformation is wonderful. The sculpting, perfect. I love the head sculpt here. His proportions are on point, great articulations, and the flame gimmick is cool. I love this figure, but I do wish that it could have gotten a better paint job at some point. I mean, especially when you compare it to Studio Series Hot Rod. Look at this beautiful figure. One of the best Voyagers ever. A figure filled with amazing points of articulation, a great transformation, paint, accessories, effect pieces. This was bang for your buck. Not the biggest of figure, but one rich with potential. I love this Hot Rod. I would honestly say he is my favorite version of the character ever put to toy form. The hits just kept on coming in 2021, so we'll start off small. If you had gotten the HasLab Unicron, you could have gotten a tiny Hot Rod. Literally, this guy is only 10 millimeters tall. There was also the Commander class Rodimus Prime. Even though I don't think he's as good as Studio Series Hot Rod, still a great figure. The trailer actually works really well. Even if I'm still not a big fan of the gun turret, the fact that you can store so many accessories inside the trailer is really nice. The robot mode is well proportioned, but my favorite part about the figure is the head sculpt. Look at how tired this Rodimus looks. It actually makes me feel for the guy. Popping over to Cyberverse one last time, there would have been the Ultimate Class Hot Rod, a big light and sound gimmick figure that looks decent, but in all honesty, it's not really for me. What was for me, though, was the Furry model kit that was put out by Flame Toys. This is a Voyager-sized robot mode that gives you IDW Rodimus, and it's perfect. I love this toy so much. Now, I will say, as it gets older, it is more and more stiff in the joints. But I will also point out, it's a great model kit, it's durable, so as long as you play with it on a somewhat consistent basis, that will help those joints to stay nice and loose. It is just one of my favorite Hot Rods ever. There also would have been the Reaction Hot Rod around this point, 3.5 inches tall, just the 5 points of articulation, but hey, good looking Hot Rod. Going into 2022, in Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom, there would have been the Core Class Hot Rod. I love this figure, one of my favorite Legends class figures of all time. They captured his silhouette perfectly, the proportions are great, transformation's clever. I do wish there was a little bit more paint on the guy, but overall, he's a good go at this. This same figure would have been re-released in the same year inside the Legacy line. There was a Nano Metafig of Hot Rod. Unimetal did an insane Rodimus. I mean, just look at this. XM Studios did a statue of Rodimus. Love this. It literally looks like he's standing on top of Unicron's maw. To bring 2022 to a close, we also got the Studio Series Deluxe Class Last Night Hot Rod. A great toy. Not the best ever made, but a very, very good one. And finally, Movie Hot Rod was allowed to be his own mold and not just a retool of Lockdown. 2023 was going to be a wild year for Hot Rod, but let's start off nice and easy with the Transformers Retro Hot Rod. Walmart exclusive, and it is just the G1 mold again, but it is repainted and remolded to look more like his cartoon self. There was the Kurokari Curry Rodimus. Look at this. It is based on his IDW appearance. He's absolutely massive. 4 alternate faces, multiple weapons, LED lights. Beautiful, 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 beautiful figure. There would have been a Funko Pop of Rodimus released alongside Galvatron. He's still probably hanging out at a GameStop near you. There was the Minimates Hot Rod sent out by Diamond Select. Allow me a moment to gush. There was the MDLX Rodimus, which looks great. My one complaint is I do think there's a little too much orange on him, but MDLX 3.0, they're always going to make some of the best feeling Transformers figures of all time, in my humble opinion. I love him. I love him. I love him. My favorite thing about him is that he actually comes with alternate hands, so he can shake hands with Optimus. He can shake hands with Optimus. My one issue is he does not include the Matrix of Leadership. It's strange, but, you know, it's the world we live in. Speaking of the world we live in, I never found out about this until I was doing research for this video. There's something called Mini World. So in China, there's a popular game called Mini World, and they've done a crossover with Transformers, one of which being Hot Rod. Basically, you buy him, but then he has like this little like living room playset, but also that living room playset transforms into his truck mode. It's crazy looking. I would love to check these out one day. 2023 would have also seen Studio Series 86 Hot Rod released once again on Hasbro Pulse, this time as Shattered Glass Rodimus. Good looking figure, probably the best figure that we'll ever see for Shattered Glass Rodimus, if we're being honest. And with that, it's time we look towards the future, because there is going to be the T-Spark Rodimus scheduled to be released in 2025. This is essentially the Kurokara Curry Rodimus, done by Takara in order to allow this design to transform. It's going to be one of the most expensive, one of the most standout, one of the most intriguing Rodimus Primes ever made. It'd be incredible, but for right now, all we have are these small photos to work off of. But there is a very real potential that this may be the best Rodimus of all time once it releases next year. And that's it! Rodimus is strange. On one hand, he's covered in figures. This is probably going to wind up being the single most plentiful video we've talked about, more so than even Jazz. And yet, it feels like he should have more. More so than even Jazz, he was supposed to be a main character. He was supposed to take over the reins from Optimus. And he didn't. I don't know if this was decades of people having fanboy rage, or maybe as time went on, there's just been too many other characters that took Hot Rod's shtick. But he doesn't have the media presence you would expect. When you think of Optimus Prime's protege nowadays, you think of Bumblebee. And in the early 2000s, you thought of Hot Shot. Hot Rod's been left by the wayside. It's a shame because there's a lot you could do with his character. He's beloved. There are so many people out there who would say Rodimus Prime is their favorite Autobot of all time, potentially even their favorite Transformer of all time. He has so many amazing figures, great media appearances, different writing, and different characterizations throughout all of his years within this franchise. He's one of the most varied and intriguing characters throughout all of Transformers, but it feels like he's also kind of B-list. I don't think it's a stretch to say that RC outshines him. I think there's an argument to be made that Ultra Magnus also outshines him. I think the fandom as a whole are more willing to buy a Springer figure than perhaps even a Hot Rod. It's strange to me that so many of these other Season 3 characters went on to have such great action figure careers, and Rodimus arguably has more figures than any of them, but he doesn't have many event figures. RC has more media appearances. She is easily on the Mount Rushmore of Autobots. Ultra Magnus, you make him, you're going to be able to make an Optimus one day, so that's probably how he gets more mainline figures. It feels like Rodimus, though, Hasbro will make one version of him and then just keep re-releasing it because, it's good enough. But guys, on that note, I'll ask you, which is your favorite Hot Rod or Rodimus? And is there one that you cannot wait to track down? I will say this, I don't know who we're going to talk about next time, but if you have any suggestions at all, please leave them in the comments below. We have a big list of viewer requests, but we're going to get to each and every one of those characters eventually. You have my word. But in any case, we'll see what we get up to next time.